Hi everyone, welcome to Rick's 1/35 scale models. My name is Rick. Today I'm going to be talking about a fun little project I did, and that's building the ICM Unimog radio truck. Now, this was the first ICM model I've built. Very impressed with it. I absolutely enjoyed the build. The quality is superb. The accuracy of the model is really nice. Just overall, just a real fun, pleasant build with tremendous results. Now, I'm going to talk about the opening of the box, looking at the parts, and then dive into building it, and then from there painting it, and then doing a little bit of weathering and the finishing. Now, what I did on this is I did use the ICM Unimog paint, and that's a neat quality acrylic paint. Works out really well, so we'll talk about that also. But let's dive into the model and see how it goes. So looking at the overall box, it comes well packaged. You have this soft cover on the top, which comes off, it's just thin. And then you have a nice box all the way around. Once you go into the box, you're going to have your instructions, some advertisement pieces. Here, really nice information, great print. They have a nice little color chart on the back with some good quality printing so you can compare colors. Then you go into your instruction manual. Now they have it in Ukrainian and English, and then really nice colors, nice quality print, really good picture size. You have a thing of your sprue sheets laid out here, and then you drop down into the instructions, which are pretty straightforward. Nice big bold writing. Older folks like me appreciate that. Going on through, then on the back you have your normal color schemes and painting and decals. Plastic itself is packaged nicely. It's really good quality. No flashing to remove. They've set the little tabs in a good place. The plastic itself, it seems like a really good quality material. Really well packaged. See the good quality detail in all the print. Through all the different sheets. Some of the parts did pop off here and there, nothing major. Then you have your clear parts, which they've packaged in these nice packages to protect. The casting on those is also outstanding, good quality molding. And then you have your rubber tires, which are solid, but really nice quality there. They do not have any writing though. It would have been nice to see the writing on the inside of the tire, but other than that, they're really good. So let's dive into the construction. So the basic beginning will be building the frame. Now it looks kind of scary the way it's set up, but it goes together quite nicely. I liked the overall look, just making sure you put the right pieces so it aligns just right. There's a few of the internal storage tanks, air tanks, things like that you have to build, and then the cross supports. But the overall, like I said, the overall quality is outstanding. It's very delicate. Very to scale. It's not a real heavy truck, so this isn't going to be a real heavy frame. Once you do the first side, then you have to connect the two together. This is the part that's always a little anxious. The biggest thing here with all frames is making sure that it's square and aligned right.
Some of the backside where the hitch is a little tricky. You just gotta make sure it notches in there properly. But they've done a real good job of making a format here that works. Because it's such a light, soft plastic, it does glue and adhere quite quickly, which is nice. The next stage will be building the suspension system. This once again is another part. It goes together nice. It looks a little confusing the way they have it set up, but just follow the instructions and it falls together really good. They've done a real good job here. I'm really impressed with the ICM's model at this point still. Once you get done with the lower suspension, then you start building the power plant. Now they have the transmission engine combination. It is actually very highly detailed, very accurate, lots of nice little parts. It's almost sad to have to cover it up, it's so nice. But just keep working through it. It's one of those parts that'll be real hard to see, but you may want to paint it before you put the cap on. The only thing it's missing would be all of the electrical wiring and things like that. But other than that, it's really a complete nice model. Yeah, the only problem I had with the kit was one of the fan blades was broke. That came that way delivered, but it's a real simple fix to glue it back on. Once the power plant's done, then it's a matter of getting it to fit inside the model. And it's you got to kind of drop it in more, very realistic as far as how they would do it. Real neat effect though. Like I said, it's a complete motor, so it's neat to see not just that little bottom part or some horrible casting. This is really good high quality material. After completing the motor, transmission, and adding all the exhaust pipes to that, you start working on the cab. That's another really thin plastic, really nice to scale details. Comes together quite nicely. The biggest thing here is make sure that you've got everything fitted properly when it attaches to the lower the frame. It will work out fine. You just got to make sure that you've got everything in alignment, or you'll have issues, and then everything will be out of alignment. Now the cab comes in quite a few small parts. It does not have seat belts and anything like that, but everything else is there. The one thing to remember on this is an older era vehicle, and in all honesty, I don't even know if it had seat belts in it. I haven't really done a lot of research there, but it's something if you want to put seat belts, you can add them in. They would just be the lap belts, though, if anything. And once you've completed this stage of the cab, you then connect it to the frame and then start adding the rest of the parts. The hood bonnet did take a little bit of fitting to make it fit right. It's real solid, nice design though. You can have it either open or closed, but and that's another. It's really thin material, so if you had it open, it looks pretty authentic. Very much an open cab. It had a canvas top on it, so you can see a lot inside. And then there's access panels you have to add in here, different components, and then all the different brake latches and different control levers and things like that it has inside. There's not a lot to it. It's just a basic truck, but there's still some pretty decent detail. Now when it came to the two seats, they're a little tricky. They're very small, delicate parts. They've got the framework and then the cushions. So it's really, took a little bit of time to get it lined up just right and then glued. It wouldn't seem that complex. Probably my big fingers made it harder, but either way it worked out nice once it was all finished. And I just went through the process of connecting it to the frame and the cab area. Now the box on the back, I didn't video the actual assembly of the sides and the base and the top. Not sure why something went wrong with the recording, but it's just straightforward. You just glue the 4 parts on the sides and then the top and then the bottom. There's nothing complex to it. Then start assembling all the little delicate parts underneath. The only criticism, if I have one, about this model is it's not designed to have an interior open. You could go through and do some modifications to have that. I opted for the hard covers over the windows on, so it didn't matter to have an interior. You couldn't see into it anyway. But there's no way to have that option without major modifications to the kit. But the exterior is quite nice and really well detailed. Here I was gluing on the steering wheel and it just didn't want to sit quite right, so I put a little wedge in there to hold it in place while I let it cure. A little bit of modifications. I used the stick glue to attach this part to the vehicle. I wanted it to be secured nice, and there's only a couple of connection points. So I use the, like I said, the stick glue. It has a little bit of a epoxy resin type of a factor to it, so it helps fill better. But making sure everything fit. The cover here, I didn't want to put it on yet because I wanted to have it off for the painting process. And then I realized that I really couldn't have it on or off without the with that glued on, so I had to do some modifications and tweaking here and kind of start that process over. So after removing that box and cleaning all the glue off, I got the rest of it all assembled, parts I needed. I realized I kind of jumped the gun there. I would recommend gluing that all on after you paint it, because of the way things fit. You can't get that cover in there if you wanted the canvas top to be painted separately. And once the model was assembled, I had added steel antennas for the 4-corner antennas on this version I have. I painted it with Mr. Hobby's primer, the black. I figured this would be good for the effect I was going for, which was a weathered, semi-faded, used vehicle. So I needed that black foundation for the paint, which is what I'm doing here. Once the black was done, then I went and added the white primer. This is just white paint base, flat. I'm using to kind of create that faded areas look so that I'll get that two-tone effect. I did want to have a little bit of the spray brush effect here. You can see some areas that are thinner and heavier to make it a little more accurate, to have that oxidized look. And then making sure as I did this, I did panels, not just clear over the whole thing, but looking at areas that would be more naturally faded versus just the overall look. Now on this, I am going to use ICM's paint. I found this to be a very, very user-friendly product, and I figured it's an ICM model, might as well use their paint. I'm doing the NATO tricolor colors, and although they don't use the traditional German terms for them, their green, brown, and black are what I feel very, very authentic to the actual true colors. So I started that process. Now the biggest process here in the painting is doing light coats. Now this is an acrylic, and so when it was thinned down it worked perfectly. and then I just slowly build up the layers till I can just see my highlighted lines underneath, and that'll give me my faded look I'm looking for. Now I am going to come back and do other modifications I'll show shortly, but this is this stage of this process. And it's important to do it lightly and not do it heavy. It is a neat effect when done correctly, but it is really simple. Like I said, the biggest part is do low coats, real thin, and then slowly build up till you get that right white coming through. The other thing you can do here is you can use a yellow or other colors depending on the effect you're looking for. If you want a rusty look, you can use a red underneath that'll kind of show through. Now I'm next going to take their kind of a mustardy color they have, and then lightly create little highlighted areas in the faded areas. This creates a multiple tone look. Once you see it finished, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm just highlighting lightly some areas, and some areas a little bit darker to create that depth within the paint. Like I said, I really love this effect. It's a neat look. It's something, I don't know if you could do it with a brush. I'm not that good, but airbrush is so simple to do. Just takes a light PSI on your air pressure, and then work through it. Now on the canopy, you can't quite see it here because I have it out of camera, sadly. I do a little more of this mustardy color on it because it has a different fade because it's canvas, so I wanted it not to look like the metal material because it would fade differently. Now once the green was done there and here, you can kind of see that on the hood, that multi-depth color of the fading. I started doing the NATO brown color here, and I'm matching the correct paint pattern, slowly but surely working that through. Now this has a little bit more depth to the color. I'm trying to not have it so much faded, but I did want to create a little bit of that airbrush thin area to create the fading look. So I didn't want a really heavy, solid, clean paint job. I wanted like I said, the used effect, and with an airbrush you can get that nicely. Here you can also see how the canvas cover over the cab area is a lot different shade. Now on the box himself, you can see I'm continuing with the brown, but you can really see the color depth here. The areas that would fade more versus areas that wouldn't, trying to simulate that. You can also see how the brown has some faded areas to it with the painting. Like I said, all this is done with the airbrush, which is a really neat tool. Now I took my brown, I had a little bit of that mustard color, and then went back and created the faded look in the brown parts. This created that depth in the material. This is a really light coat, just highlighting some spots here and there. Like I said, real low PSI, real low pressure. From there, it's time to do the black. Now the black, I've noticed, generally seems to have a little bit more of a fade in a lot of areas, so as I'm doing this, I'm not getting a real heavy coat. I'm making sure I have more of the paint lines visible from the spraying. That gives that more of a realistic look in the painting. This is another one of those, like I said, I know I say it all the time and all that, but I really love using the airbrush. It's just a slow process, delicate, light, a little bit of paint on, see how you get the effect you want, and then just slowly work on adding. I've seen a lot of people do heavy painting on this, and you're not going to have that. you'd have more of the lighter look. You will see some spray lines here and there, but you don't see the heavy, thick coating. So this does it definitely. The PSI I'm using is 34 PSI, and I've thinned the paint down probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% paint, 40% water. They want water for your thinner on the paint. It works out nicely. The nice thing about the water is it dries pretty quick, especially with the air pressure, so it works out nicely. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that you get a nice clean flow, but you don't want it too watered down, or what will happen is every time you push down on the button you'll get a little dribble on the end, and that'll actually splatter, and then it'll ruin your whole paint job. So it's a matter of making sure your tip stays clean and just making that. Once it was painted, I followed up with a clear gloss. I did that and added all my decals, then came back and did a flat clear. Once that was cured, I wanted to do a little bit of oil work. So here I'm just taking your standard paste oil paint to put little dots and then create the weathering effect by the streaking. This is done by just taking clean thinner for oil-based paint and just pulling it downward. As you can see here, it spreads out nice. It's a very light amount. You're not doing something heavy, and that gives you your streaks from weathering that I'm accomplishing here. You can kind of see them developing. Once it dries and then you hit it with another flat, you'll get a really neat effect. I'm using yellow, brown, and white here to create this effect, and then kind of mixing a little bit to create that weathered, streaked look you would see from oxidation, showing a vehicle that's been washed properly, but it's just weathering with time. So as I said, once this weathering effect was done, I hit it with a clear flat. This seals the oils in. It also balances everything out and looks nicely. If you add chalk or any of those things, you definitely want to do this also so none of it wears off. But that's the process I went through, and I came out with nice results. Next stage will be gluing everything together and showing you the finished results. So here's the completed model. You can see the fading, the streaking here. You can see some of the mud on the tires I've added, nothing major. A better look at the streaking I did with oils. On the back I added some straps where they would hang different canvas material. This is the other side, you can see that. And then the faded top here. Look at the front end. As I said, an outstanding model, very high detail, very delicate, real good scale. Very impressed with the overall finished results. Highly recommended. So everyone, take care. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me on the comment part, or you can get me on Facebook. I do try and get back to everybody as soon as possible. Once again, everybody take care, have a great time, happy modeling, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.